Anyone? Someone? Please?
You heard The Little Mermaid. Beating this thing isn't about who's at fault, it's about who's worthy.
Most shows and movies have a list of rules that their cast members need to follow, and Legacies is no different. The show is a spin-off from The Vampire Diaries and the originals, and before the show even started, it already had a giant following that couldn't wait for the series to begin. And since then, it has built even more of a fandom that loves the show. It follows Hope, who is the daughter of a werewolf and a vampire, when she goes to school that works with other incredible children like her. The Salvatore School for the Young and Gifted gives their students a place to learn how to control their abilities, but the young actors also need a lot of control to follow all the rules set out for them. These are the strict rules Legacy cast members must follow. Please remember to hit the like button if you enjoy the video, then subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. That way you'll never miss any of the content we post. First up, no member of the cast has any say in the story. They might be allowed to make suggestions for their characters or for the storyline, but the last say stays with the creators and with the writers. So no one is allowed to argue about anything that happens on the show, even if it means that they get killed off. No actor ever wants to be killed off of a hit show. But sadly, they don't get a say. But we have to be honest, this is Legacies. Dying on this show, or really any CW show, doesn't really mean all that much. There are loads of ways that you can come back from death and carry on in the show. And again, if you do come back, it really won't be up to you. Be available for long hours at a time. Normally, most shows only shoot for a certain number of months each year, but during that time, you should be prepared to give all of your time to the show. And the Legacies cast members are an extreme case of that. They have an incredibly hectic and hard shooting schedule that they work with. Most of the time, shoots can take up to 16 hours at a time, so you get to work and stay there for 16 hours most days. That is seriously intense. They do have spaces where they can go to rest during their off time or during times between shoots, but you have to be ready to go every time that the director needs you. That means that even after working for hours at a time, you still need to be on when they call for you. Viewers are never allowed to see how tired actors are behind the scenes. Actors ensure that the magic of the show is kept intact and that the only thing the fans see is the character and their stories, and none of the long hours that the cast put into creating the show. You are never allowed to give away spoilers. This can't always be easy. You live with your character for so long and you live their stories, but you aren't allowed to speak about what is happening behind the scenes. Not until the show has aired. And with a show that comes out weekly, it is even more important to make sure that nothing is spilled before it has been shown on television. And what makes it even harder is when the cast has to do publicity for the show. Most of the time that comes just before a new season starts airing. So the cast knows what is going to happen, but they aren't allowed to share anything with the talk show hosts that interview them, no matter how hard they try to fool them or beg or plead for inside information. It does make sense. Most of us want to know what is going to happen next and where our favorite characters are. But when we know something big is going to happen before we see the episode, it is pretty disappointing. It doesn't have the same impact and it doesn't have the same effect on our emotions that it would have had if it came out of nowhere. So in the end, the fact the cast can't give spoilers or show any emotions when doing interviews is good for all of the fans. There is a strict no fighting policy on the Legacy set. We've heard a lot about fighting from teen shows. Many cast members from some of the most popular shows of the last few years have spoken out about the environment that they had to work in. Many sets have been super toxic, and it not only disappointed fans, but eventually it also came through in the shows, or even became so bad the cast members left or that show was cancelled. And more importantly, it is a terrible environment for anyone to work in, especially for the younger actors on set. For their mental health, it is really important that the show takes accountability and enforces a positive workspace. Connected to the no fighting rule is the strict no scandal rule. We know that the characters we love are very different people from the people who play them, but no one wants to support a really horrible person, even when you love the show that they are on. This means that scandals that people in the real world have can definitely impact on the show and the fan following. So it makes sense that the crew really wants to limit scandals as much as possible. That is why many people think that Matthew Davis, who plays Alaric on the show, is very much in a dangerous bubble. He has had a number of controversies in the last while, and many fans have spoken out against him. He has said some things on social media that was not only super weird, but also incredibly racist, so I can completely see why fans are angry. He has definitely broken the no scandal rule completely, so we will have to see if he does it again, and if it will lead him to losing his spot on this hit television show. On set, you need permission for everything. Like we have already said, the cast members of Legacies have a hectic schedule and a super long work hours. But when you are on set, your own time belongs to the production crew. Your production time belongs to the production crew, and you aren't allowed to go anywhere without their permission. Just imagine, you move away from set for a second, even just for a bathroom break, but right at that moment, they need you to complete a shot. Wasting time on set is a big no-no and can even cost a lot of money. So you need to make sure that the director and the rest of the crew always know where you are. You can't do anything without asking for permission, and only then can you move off set. So taking a break is on a strict schedule. And that leads us to the next rule. Never be late for your call time. This can be your call time first thing in the day, or even the call time that you have after taking a break. But you are never allowed to be late for this time. And that doesn't mean that you show up on time for the call time. It means that you show up with enough time to get your hair and makeup done and with enough time to get into the wardrobe. All of that needs to be done before your call time arrives. And then you need to be on set ready to shoot with at least 10 minutes to spare before your call time. And you always need to know your lines, even if they are in Japanese. Obviously, we have already said that it is super important to be on time and not waste production time. So that is why it is also super important to know your lines before you get to set and start shooting your scene. If they need to stop so that you can get your next lines, you will be very unpopular. So I can imagine the pressure that Kaylee Bryant had on her soldiers. Her character Josie had to speak in Japanese. The only problem, Kaylee doesn't actually speak Japanese, so she had to work very hard to learn her lines and to make sure that her pronunciation was really good, to make sure she didn't accidentally change the meaning of what Josie was saying. But her hard work seems to have paid off. Many people on social media complimented her on her Japanese accent and how well she did. So it was worth it. When on location, don't explore. Legacies have done location shots in some incredible houses, so the cast has some strict rules when it comes to those types of shoots too. Normally, production rents the rooms they're shooting in, so other areas of the house would be strictly off limits. And when they use the furniture and interior that belongs to the owners, the cast must make sure that they are very respectful of these people's properties. It goes back to making sure that the image of the show remains intact and that no damaging stories come from the set. If they did destroy someone's home and the story was leaked into social media, it would reflect really badly on the show. You need to be available. When the show casts a character for a smaller role, they generally have a rule that they have the option of making the part bigger. If fans react really well to the character, or if there's some really great chemistry on screen, then they might decide to make this character a regular, even if the actor only signed up for a small part. The last thing you would want then is for an actor to be unavailable. That is why having the option is important. Always do your best. Legacies came with a big, legacy that came from the shows that it spun from. There were some serious diehard fans from those shows, so the cast of Legacies really had to put in their all to make sure that this show could be just as good as its predecessors were. And I do think they have done this. They followed the rules to make sure that Legacies doesn't disappoint fans, and the show is an incredible experience for all of us. Thanks for watching.